What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta be real with you guys. I've been seeing a lot of drama going on right now within Arc Raiders, of players talking about how gray weapons are absolutely dominating the whole scene, and how they want to see some massive changes when it comes to the weapon balancing to make sure things are, a little bit more evened out for players who want to bring in some, like pink tier weapons or just, higher gear into the overall experience. But I'm here to tell you guys that, honestly, I don't agree with this completely. I'll be real. Yeah, I do think there should be some tunings here and there, but the way that Embark balanced out the weapons within this overall experience is almost perfect. Not completely perfect, as I said. There definitely can be some tunings, that happen later on down the road, but I do not want to see the gray weapons become, completely irrelevant or anything like that, because, as I stated, that will be detrimental to the overall health of Arc Raiders. But ladies and gentlemen, of course, before going dive on deep, if you guys are interested in more content like this, don't forget subscribing to the bell. Post twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, as I stated, I might get a lot of hate for this opinion, but that's perfectly fine, because on YouTube, everybody who is making videos is just stating their opinions. And of course, you guys are all allowed to state your opinions down in the comment section below on how you feel about this overall topic. Now, as I stated, I don't necessarily think that the balance of the top tier loot is completely good just yet. I do think that some of the pink tier loot and some other things could use a little bit of a buff to make them a little bit more beneficial, because I do see a lot of people getting completely mopped by, Stitchers while they're using something else. But I don't want to see gray weapons become completely irrelevant, and I think that people are misunderstanding the purpose of Arc Raiders. The more people play this game, the more I'm starting to think they want it to be a hardcore experience like Tarkov, a much more, again, hardcore extraction shooter where your time invested means a lot in the end game. But Arc Raiders is not that, guys. Ever since its inception, it has been known as the extraction shooter for employed individuals, people who don't have that much time, on their schedule to play the game. They might only have, 30 minutes, an hour, maybe an hour and a half to go ahead and get some matches in. And of course, that doesn't mean Arc Raiders is the only game they want to play. There's a lot of other games out there that are really fun, very enjoyable, and some people just cannot invest time like others can into the overall experience, meaning that if this was like Tarkov, they are going to be severely behind the rest of the competition, making this not a very appealing option for those who are more casual compared to those who are much more hardcore players. And I'll be real with you guys, I don't necessarily see where everybody's saying a lot of the guns are bad. Yeah, some of the pink weapons could use a buff to make them a little bit more relevant, maybe make it so they don't get worn down as quickly so they break instantly. But man, the Venator, the Renegade, there's so many other weapons out there that absolutely mop the floor with players. And yeah, the gray weapons do compete, but 9 times out of 10 when I'm using something for the Renegade, typically if I get mopped down by a gray weapon, it's because I'm not really, paying attention to my surroundings. I'm either caught looting, I'm caught doing something else, and I get shot in the back, and, they get a little bit of an advantage on me, which is, again, completely fair. The whole point of Arc Raiders is to be one with your surroundings and understand what's going on around you, listen to sound cues, There's a reason why cars have alarms on some of them, and, birds will scatter in certain areas, because you, as a player, are supposed to be paying attention to what's going on. And if you're going in with, some of the best loot in the game, and you're just running around nilly-willy, nothing's going on, nothing matters, this is the nicest way I could put it. That is your fault. If I'm going in with top tier stuff, I'm paying attention to everything. I'm listening to everything. And of course, if I get caught off guard, that's great and all. But if I don't get caught off guard and the enemy is using a gray weapon, 9 times out of 10, I could probably get a nice advantage, unless, of course, I'm not the best shot and they can find a way to, wiggle around me and, maneuver. But once again, that's the fun of Arc Raiders. That's why a lot of casuals are investing so much time into this game over other extraction games, because there's no cap for, the entry level of fun. If the only way you can enjoy Arc Raiders was by getting the best of the best gear, then, again, the overall casual marketplace would not invest time into the overall product. Because, as I stated, people don't have time like that. If they only have an hour, maybe 2 hours tops, to play a game, and they have a bunch of games in their catalog that they want to enjoy, so it's not only Arc Raiders, maybe they want to play Battlefield, maybe they want to play COD, maybe they want to play any other game out there, they won't have the same time as a lot of us here, where we're putting in a decent amount of time to unlock the coolest gear, the coolest stuff, and get that type of advantage. And like I stated, I think Embark absolutely nailed it. Yeah, of course they could do some more tuning to some of the pink weapons, but overall, I think balancing is very good because it allows casuals to come in and still play without making it, completely pointless to want to grind up for the better loot. Yeah, a Stitcher is going to absolutely demolish, right? Especially if you go ahead and level it up. But let's be real here. If I still catch you with a Stitcher and I'm using a Venator, I'm probably going to mop you. Again, it's just the reality of things. So yes, the better weapons still have a slight benefit to the gunfight. But is it the end-all, be-all of the scenario? No, because even if I am using a Venator, if I miss a few shots or if I, position myself poorly, that Stitcher will indeed end my career, which I think is a good balance because if the Venator could mop the Stitcher in every scenario, or the Pharaoh was absolutely useless, or the Kettle just had absolutely no flow whatsoever, then newcomers wouldn't play the game. It's as simple as that. At this very current date, before reset, a lot of players have all the good stuff. Imagine a new player entering Arc Raiders trying to get into the flow of things, and they're stuck with, again, Stitchers, Pharaohs, Kettles, stuff like that, and they're versing people with fully decked out Venators and, again, like I said, Renegades and Bobcats and all this other stuff. They're not playing. Let's be real here, ladies and gentlemen. They are not playing. If their Stitcher can't do anything to you, or if their Pharaoh can't do anything, or their Kettle can't do anything, they're going to say, what's the point? Why am I even going to bother playing this game? As I stated before, it's so crucial to understand that Arc Raiders is for casual players. It's not as hardcore of an extraction shooter like Tarkov. It's not. And yes, you will still be rewarded for putting in time into the game, and you'll get good loot, but that doesn't mean that a newcomer is going to be at a complete disadvantage, and I don't think any of us will want that because that will kill the overall success of what Arc Raiders has going on here. The reason it's doing so well is because everybody can log in, and everybody can find a way to have fun. If only one group of players, the most hardcore players who put in the most time, can only have fun, then guess what? Everybody's going to skedaddle, and they're just going to go play something else. Nobody wants to get whooped 20,000 times by a person who has hundreds of hours in the game, stacking up on all the best loot, and, they're just going and mopping all the newcomers who are just trying to slowly build their stash up. They're not sticking around for that. And also, I think it's very important that I mention this as well, because this right here is for the hardcore players. Those hardcore players are not going to prestige either. Guys, don't forget, we have the expedition system in this game. And I always sit here and think to myself, what are the reasons for a hardcore player giving up all of their stash to go on this expedition? Yeah, you get some more storage space. Yes, you get some more skill points so you can put it towards your tree. But if this game worked how a lot of players want it to work, where gray weapons were absolutely garbage, and the only good guns in the game were pink weapons, blue weapons, so on and so forth, why would anybody prestige? Why would anybody go on the expedition if they know they're going to be going through hell trying to build themselves back up? Again, it's an optional expedition. It's not like Tarkov where it's a permanent wipe for everyone across the board, meaning it doesn't matter what you say, what you want, you are wiping. No, you have a choice to wipe in Arc Raiders, meaning that if someone doesn't want to lose all their best loot, they technically don't have to. If they don't want to lose all their blueprints, they don't have to, which means that if all the great weapons were garbage in this game, nobody would go on the expedition because it would be nothing but a negative for them at the end of the day. Why give up all the best stuff in the game to go back to the garbage and then get continuously whooped by the people who chose not to, reset? It's no point. For me personally, that would be a huge turnoff. But since I know I can use the Pharaoh, and I can use the Stitcher and the Kettle, I can upgrade them and turn them into, something that's a little bit better, I am still encouraged to take part in this expedition because I know that it's not going to be that much of a difference for me. Yeah, I'll still get mopped by someone rocking a Venator if I'm not careful enough. I still have to change my playstyle, maybe be a bit more stealthy, listen, and try to get the jump on enemies. But again, I have to get the jump on them. There's still a disadvantage for me. I'm using weaker weapons. It's up to the opponent that I'm going against to be smart, listen, be aware of their surroundings, and not get jumped. You see what I'm saying here? Yeah, the gray weapons aren't amazing, but they can compete if used correctly, and I think people are just salty because they might get mopped by someone who shoots them in the back of the head with a kettle a handful of times, and they're like, wow, I just lost all this good loot. But that's the reality of an extraction shooter. If you get caught off guard, you get caught off guard and you will die. That's why the tensions are always so high in this game. That's why people aren't just sprinting around mindlessly and stuff. Like they're listening, they're crouching, they're trying to work the map and understand what's happening. That is what makes Arc Raiders fun. And also on top of that, I want to throw one last thing in here. I don't know if it's true or not, but this is how I personally feel. I think that because the gray weapons are, pretty dang decent, that encourages players to actually go in with good loot, at least for me personally. I don't mind going in with my Venators. I don't mind going in with my Renegades. I don't mind going in with my pink loot, because if I die and lose it, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going back to absolute garbage. If all the gray weapons were garbage, that would create the biggest type of gear fear in the world, because nobody would want to lose the good weapons, because if they lose the good weapons, they know they're at a massive disadvantage. Knowing that if you lose that stuff and you're not at a massive disadvantage encourages players to come in with more, juicy stuff, which again is good for the ecosystem, because if you die, yeah, someone else gets that, equipment, and if they die, someone else gets that equipment. That equipment is now out in the world instead of just sitting in your stash rotting. But ladies and gentlemen, the moral of the story here is that I don't think gray weapons should be nerfed. If anything, I think some pink weapons should be buffed up a little bit, but the call for action to make sure all gray weapons are absolute garbage and that they can't compete with any pink weapons or any blue weapons whatsoever is just a joke to me, because as I stated, that would ruin the experience for every casual out there. It would not be an enticing experience for, people who don't have much time on their hands, and the player count would definitely start dwindling away, because, it would just boil down to the people who have endless hours on their, hands to just grind and get the best stuff, and the people who don't have much time are just going to get demolished by those people, and that is not a fun experience. But of course, go down in the comment section, let me know what you guys think. Do you think gray weapons should be nerfed to the dirt, or do you think that, what I said is pretty true, and the only thing that really needs to be done is just maybe some buffs across the board to some of the pink weapons to make them a little bit more viable? But ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Post twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, guys are interested, I got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all next one. Peace out.